Okay, so now I'm getting feedback. This I should fix. How about now? All right, no feedback. All right, cool. Everybody can still hear me at home? All right, so we have x is equal to negative b over 2a, right? That's how we use the formula to find. Now, we can complete the square, but I generally find people like this one better. And this is just going to get our x, right? So if I do problem 1, my b is 10. So I have 10 divided by 2. My a is a negative 1. So I get that x is equal to a negative 5, yes?
Isn't it positive 5? Isn't negative b?
Good job. Yes, it is a positive 5. All right, and then I have to put in negative 5 squared plus 10 times 5. And this negative is coming from this one. So, and it's not, don't forget the difference. We do not have this situation, right? That negative is not going to be applied by that exponent. So it's still going to be a negative 25 plus 50 gives us 25. So my vertex is going to be 5, 25, and your axis of symmetry is your x, right? This axis of symmetry is x equals. So in this problem, my x equals 5. Majority of your problems for the chapter 4, you are going to have to find that vertex. So know this. I'm going to be quiet while you, well, does anybody have questions on 2? 2 is actually a little bit easier than 1, I think. Looking at problem 3. Remember, what we want is that vertex, and we want our x-intercepts. So if I factor this, if I say x squared plus 4x equals 0, remember when you're looking at an x-intercept, your y is 0. So the only thing that I can do is x and x plus 4 equals 0. So that means that I have an x-intercept at x equals 0 and x equals negative 4. 0 and negative 4. Now I want to find that vertex so that I know what point down here it's going to be. So again, negative b over 2a. So negative 4 over 2 times 1. X is equal to a negative 2. Plug that in, and you have got negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2. This time, because that negative is inside of those parentheses, you get a positive 4 minus 8, giving a negative 4. So your vertex this time is -2, -4. -2, -4. Come on, why did you stop? There you go. And if you can get me those 3 points, stop it, then you're going to be good. Again, know how to get that vertex. Okay, that vertex is going to answer a lot of your questions. In class and at home, if I'm working a problem and you want me to go back and why did you, where did you, who did you, you got to tell me. What is the domain of any quadratic? Always it don't like me writing on it. And that's the whole reason I got it, so I could write on it. Always all real numbers, right? So my domain is all real, but how am I going to find my range? Again, I've got to do what? Get that vertex. You need your y in that vertex. So let's find the vertex of problem 4. -10 over 2 times 1. Why are you doing that? Gives me a -5. Good. All right, but that's my x, right? I still need to go back in. So I need -5 squared plus 10 times -5 plus 25. So I've got 25 minus 50 plus 25. What am I going to get for y? Okay, so then my range is going to be, how do I know if it's going up or down?
Yeah, it's positive and negative.
My A here is positive, so I know it's going up, right? So my range is going to be y equals from 0 to positive infinity. Yes? All right.
I think one of the right.
It would be something like that. Okay.
So are we writing it out or is it multiple choice?
Multiple choice.
Okay.
All right. I wish I had a different stylus. I guess it must be how would you go backwards? If I gave you the solution to a quadratic equation, how would you go back? I mean, okay, so what is the vertex form look like? If I'm looking at the vertex, I wonder if this would work on here. If I'm looking at my vertex, I've got x minus h. I'm not going to be able to use this. Dadgummit. Squared plus k, right? And h and k are my vertex. So if I know this right here, then I'm going to write what's x minus a negative 1. So that's going to be x plus 1 squared plus 1, right? FOIL it out. And you have got x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus 1. And that's going to give you the function f of x is equal to x squared plus 2x plus 2. And does that plus 2 on the end fit? How does that assure me? That's my y-intercept, right? When x is 0. Okay? All right, I am going to swap this over. I'm going to stop sharing on this one. If I lose you guys at home, I'll be logging back in. I just, for some reason, this keeps blinking and it is not fun. All right, we're moving over to the whiteboard so that we don't have to deal with that blinking. Would number 7, I have f of x is equal to 3x squared. Would I have a minimum or a maximum on that one? Minimum. I know my parabola is going to be, and again, I'm kind of jumping over that one because what do you need to do to find out? What do you need to figure out there? You need your vertex for 7 and 8. Negative b over 2a gives me a 1/3. 3 times 1/3 squared minus 2 times 1/3 minus 3/3. So this is 1/9, and that's gonna cancel with that 3 back down to 1/3, yes? Be checking my math, guys. And then I have minus 2/3 minus 3/3. So that should give me a negative 4/3. So my vertex is 1/3 and negative 4/3. And what am I trying to find out on this one? Minimum value, y equals a negative 4/3. Yes? Okay. Same thing with 8. And I'm gonna start jumping, guys, in the interest of time. How are we on the inequalities? Okay. What do I need to know? Do I have anybody that wants to go over inequalities? You got to factor them, right? You're going to factor them and find out where you're above and below the x-axis. How do I know if I have a degree of a if I have a polynomial? How can I say yes or no? What am I looking for? And any polynomial A has to be a positive integer, right? So if you have anything under the square root sign, or you have anything that is in the denominator, 13 would not be a polynomial because that would be x to the negative 6, right? 15, if my zeros are -3, -1, and 2, how do I get from there? It tells me I have a degree of 3 to the polynomial. What should I write? Watch those signs with the opposite, right? All right, now what if I asked you, these are your x-intercepts, right? What's your y-intercept going to be on this? If I multiply this whole thing out, what constant number would be at the end? Okay. So if I did 0 plus 3, and 0 plus 1, and 0 minus 2, because x is 0. If I'm looking for the y-intercept, that x is 0, right? So what would I get then? So my y-intercept is 0 and -6. To get the polynomial, I'm going to just multiply everything out. What would I have? If I have the multiplicity of 2. So I have a 0 that is 2 with a multiplicity of 2. What does that multiplicity word mean? So I would have x minus 2 to the second power, yes? And then it says negative 2 with a multiplicity of 2. So I would have x squared minus 4x plus 4 times x squared plus 4x plus 4. How many turning points would I have on this? What's the maximum number of turning points? 3, right? Because the degree of this polynomial is going to be, so the turning points are the degree minus 1. I'm going to let you work on 1 through 20. Pick out the problem. Notice I knocked out 19. Okay. At home, you're not seeing it, but before I copied off your study guide, I did knock out problem 19. We're not doing that one. Did I have a question?
Screen protect all the phone drop. Yeah, what the AT&T at up here? Yeah. I need to call see if they got the phone first. Can you do one of the inequalities again?
Mm-hmm. I sure can. The first thing you want to do when you have an inequality is factor it. Because you want your x-intercepts. So if I have x squared minus 6x plus 8 is greater than 0, I'm looking for what can I multiply to get an 8 and add to get a negative 6. There you go. So that's going to give me a 2 and a 4 for my x-intercepts, right? So all I need, I don't need a real accurate graph, I just need, there's my 2, and there's my 4. Now my A here is positive, so I know that my graph is coming like that. I am looking for where is f of x greater than 0. So I want to know where is it above the 0. So that means I'm going from negative infinity to 2. And I'm using parentheses on this one because I don't have the or equal to. And I need to use union because I've got a break right here. And then we pick back up at 4 and go to positive infinity. Now, if this whole thing had been the less than or equal to, then I would have been looking at this section down here. I would have been, where is it less than 0? And so that would have been negative or positive 2, 4. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anywhere else that have any questions on the 420?
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
The 11 through 14 state whether it's a polynomial or not.
Okay, so what I am looking for on 11 through 14 is that exponents. If it's a polynomial, my exponents are gonna be positive integers, right? So 11, all of my exponents, I've got a 4 and a 3 and a 0. So yes, that is, and it's gonna have a degree of 4. 12, I'm gonna have to go ahead and distribute that x, but I'm gonna have x to the second power, right? So 12 is a yes, because 2 and 1, if I distribute this, I have x squared minus 12x. All of my exponents are positive integers, so I get a yes. But when I look at x to the 4th minus 6, this is the same thing as x to the 4th minus 6 times x to the negative 6, right? So right there, that's a no. It's not a polynomial. And on 14, when I have x to the 4/3, well, that's not an integer. So I get a no.
Okay.
Sometimes you're gonna have to work them out a little bit to make sure. I think on your quiz, you had the square root of x times the square root of x minus 5. Was that on the quiz? Can't remember for sure, but it kind of looks,
That wasn't there.
that's gonna be an x, right? So we're kind of good, but that's gonna be a no, right? Because the square root of x is x to the 1/2. So this would be x minus 5 times x to the 1/2. Well, 1/2 is not an integer. So that's a no, it wouldn't be on there. Sometimes you'll have to work them out. Anywhere else with 420 or 20 included? All right, what about on the synthetic division? How are we on that? Okay, you do have a synthetic division problem on your test. You're good there? Okay. What about the remainder theorem and the factor theorem? All we're doing is plugging it in, right? If I'm looking at problem 22, 23 or 24, 23, 5, x to the 6th minus x plus 1, all I'm going to do is plug in a negative 1. Remember, you're going to use that opposite, and you would have 5 times negative 1 to the 6 minus 3 times negative 1 to the 3rd plus 8. Because this is even, I get a positive 5. Because this is odd, I'm going to have to change that to a plus 3 and a plus 8. So I don't have a problem on here that specifically asks it, but one of the things that helps you with solving is Descartes' rule. So how many, if this is my f of x right here, how many, what's the maximum number of solutions I'm going to have? 6, right? How many of them are positive? 2 or 0? Because I have 2 changes, right? I go from positive to negative, and then I go from negative to positive. Maximum number of 6. 2 of them would be positive. And then if I was talking about f of negative x, here we go again. We're talking about when that exponent is even, my sign won't change, but if that exponent is odd, my sign will change. So this would be still positive 5x to the 6th, and this would be a positive 3x to the 3rd, and that would be, so how many of them would be negative? Do any of my signs change? It stays positive through the whole thing, right? So I know that I have 2 or 0 positive solutions, but I know I have none that are negative. How do we get that potential 0? How do we find our potential zeros? 25. How do I find all my potential rational solutions for this polynomial? Remember, I have to do, yeah. And who's P? Kind of backwards. And then my first one is Q, right? So I need 1 and 2 over all of the factors of 1, 2, 3, and 6. So I'm going to say 1 over 1, 1 over 2, 1 over 3, 1 over 6. Then I'm going to say 2 over 1, 2 over 2, 2 over 3, and 2 over 6. And all of these are plus and minus, positive and negative. So I get a 1 and a 1/2 and a 1/3 and a 1/6, a 2. I already have a 1, a 2/3, and a 1/3, which I already have, right? So here is all of my possible, I'm not saying these are my solutions. These are my possible solutions, yes? All right, let's work out 26. How many, what's my max number of solutions I'm gonna have? And how many of them are possibly positive? How many times do those signs in front of my terms change? Just once. So I have one positive rational solution. What would f of negative x? Which terms would change their signs if I was putting in a negative x? Would my first term change its sign?
Yes.
Yeah, because 3 is odd, so that's going to become a negative x to the third. Would my second term change? My third term would change. And then my 12 doesn't have one, so it's not going to, right? So, changes. 1, same, 2. So for negative solutions, I have 2 or none, right? So this one's kind of nice in that A is 1. So all I need is my factors of 12, right? Because it would be P over Q. And since Q is 1, it's just going to be P. So I have plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2. We can go straight into synthetic division and test them, or we can use the factor theorem and test them. What's your preference? It doesn't make any difference which way you want to go about it. I'm going to start with positive 1. I don't know, I guess we could cheat a little bit and look, save ourselves some time, but I would have, let's make sure we don't use our f of x, negative f of x. I would have 1 to the third plus 3 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 minus 12. Well, I think with that minus 12 on the end, we know 1 isn't going to work, is it? Right? So I would have negative 1 to the third plus 3 times negative 1 squared minus 4 times negative 1 minus 12. I'm pretty sure that I have more negatives there than I have positives. We're not going to get a 1 out of here. So I could do 2 to the third plus 3 times 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 12. And I'm going to get an 8, 4, 12, minus 8, minus 12. I think that was my lucky number. That's going to come out 0, isn't it? So I'm going to use my synthetic division. And I'm going to divide by a positive 2. Remember to check your exponents, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Make sure you don't have any gaps that you need to fill in. So my coefficients are 1, 3, -4, -12. I'm dividing by a 2. Bring down that 1. 1 times 2 ends in a 5. 5 times 2 gets me a 6. 6 times 2. So now I have f of x is equal to x minus 2. Remember, we're multiplying, we're dividing by a positive, so that's x minus 2. X squared plus 5x. Whoop. Am I done? The good news is that's just a trinomial now, right? That's a quadratic. We know how to factor that. What can I multiply that would get me a 6? Go. So I'm going to say, whoop, x minus 2 times x plus 2 whoop. Yeah. Right? And I'm done. My zeros are 2, -2, -3. My y-intercept is at -12. Okay. Any questions anywhere? All right, guys, I'm good if you're good. Any questions at home?